Do you want your footage to have that cinematic film look but don't know where to start? Well, look no further, because today we're diving into Dehancer, a plugin that's become one of the most popular tools for giving digital footage the texture, color, and character of real film. But is it actually worth it, or is it another generic plugin? Let's find out. Hey there, I'm Suleiman with Suleiman Films, and today we're talking about Dehancer. Dehancer was kind enough to provide me with access to their software, so I decided to put it to work. I used it to color grade one of our recent short films, Curveball, and some videos from Iceland, experimenting with some photography, and spent some time exploring everything it has to offer. Spoiler, there's a lot. So in this video, I'll walk you through what Dehancer does, the features that stood out to me, and whether I think it's worth adding to your filmmaking or photography workflow. Right off the bat, one of the best aspects of Dehancer is how flexible it is. And I don't mean that just in terms of what it can do, but also how you can use it. Dehancer is available with pretty much every video editing software like DaVinci, Premiere, and Final Cut. There's even an iOS app if you want your cat videos to look a little extra cinematic, but more on that in a bit. I use Premiere to edit, so we'll be looking at the Dehancer plugin today for Premiere. You download that and any other plugin from Dehancer.com, and of course, install it before you use it. So do that first. All right, to kick things off, we're gonna take a look at a few scenes from our recent short film, Curveball. Now, we normally film in log and RAW. The editor grades or uses a LUT. But for this short, we were under a bit of a time crunch, and we experimented with Sony Cinetone instead, the built-in settings Sony cameras use. So I think it looks pretty good, but I wanted to see what we could do to bump it up to give it that cinematic look. All right, so we have our effect in place, and for this one, we're just gonna toss it on the adjustment layer. And then once we go up here into effect controls, and if you look down here, you'll see all the different options that you can adjust. And each one of these has settings within them, so you can make any changes that you want. All right, so normally if you're gonna shoot on log, this is what you'll do. You'll go in here, select choose camera, and that's gonna enable this additional setting. And then from here, you can scroll down until you locate your specific camera. So we filmed this on Ryan's Sony FX3. So we'll scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. And then yeah, you can see here you have all your different log settings. However, since we didn't film this in log, we're actually not gonna use this, but this is where you would be able to locate that. But the main thing, of course, with this being a film emulator, that you're gonna want to do is pick your film profile. Under film, you're gonna have the profile down here, and what you're gonna do is select the one of your choosing. So there are a lot. You have a huge variety here. I am always drawn to Kodak. I have a lot of nostalgia for Kodak. So we'll select that, and then we will toggle enable. And you can see that puts a little bit of effect on already. So it definitely cools it down a little bit. And if you want to see some of the different ones, so we can change it a little bit. Actually, I kind of like that one more. But if you want to say do Fujifilm instead, you can do that. So let's do Fujifilm Instax. A little intense there. Actually like that one as well. So yeah, you can really mess around, see what fits your kind of mood, or just your style of the project itself, or just what you're really drawn to. And there's so many options. So yeah, let's actually stick with the Fuji color here. I really do like that one. All right, so we have our film profile selected. We're gonna go with the Fuji Color Pro 400H, and then we'll move on. So some of the other settings that you will probably wanna adjust or work with are gonna be under the film developer. This one is really cool. So if you're shooting in log, it's really useful. You can actually just go right in here, and adjusting these 4 settings are essentially enough to go from log to almost a fully color graded footage. And it's really cool. So again, this not being in log, we won't mess around with it too much. All right, so after you enable it, you can make any other adjustments that you want. So you can adjust the sliders here. You can sort of get at what you want it. So I don't want to increase it that much. I think that's good. So we can go into the gamma. So my go-to with anything that involves using sliders is to just kind of futz with it until you get that right feeling. Yeah, like that. Film developer is probably one of the most useful ones that you'll be interacting with when you're using Dehancer. So definitely get familiar with it. Like I said, you can use it pretty much for the entire grading process if you wanted to. All right, so the other one too that we're gonna use, we'll skip through some of these, but you can see there's a lot of options here. So we will hop right into film grain. You have several different options. So we're gonna go with 35 at ISO 250. The higher the ISO, the grainier the footage is going to look. It's actually for just for comparison. So we'll start here, get a little bit of a full glimpse of very surprised Jeff. Turn on, so you can see a little bit of the grain there, not too intense. Let's bump it up to 250, a little bit more. You can really tell where you have the highlights here with the light. Let's bump it all the way up to 500. So a little more intense. You can really see it around his skin where it gets a little grainier. So let's give that a little play and see what we're looking at here. But yeah, I like that. I think it's kind of a fun touch. We're moving into the other scene here once the bad guy's taken them prisoner. And again, I think the film grain is the most fun that you can kind of mess around with when it comes to a film emulator, because it does give it that real film touch without actually having to shoot on film. Some of the other settings that are always fun to mess around with are halation and bloom. So that's going to be that kind of like light fringing that you're going to see around light sources. Once again, go to the profile, select the one that you want. Let's rewind it back here a little bit, go back towards our beginning. Bloom, same thing. So you can mess around with that, get it a little bit more intense. Yeah, you can really see it around his face. So one of the other settings that you can mess around with is film damage. It can get a little intense depending on which one you select. So if you go with, say, 8mm and you turn that on, you can see it has that really old-timey sort of retro effect. I do like the effect. I like that the option's there if you want it. I don't know if I'm going to use it 100% of the time though. And then yeah, so you can go through the process and just pick the settings that you want to mess with, and then when you're done, just treat it like you would anything else. You know, save it, export it, and then you're pretty much good to go. All right, so the other one that I was going to show is actually going to be in log, so this will be a good example of that. Let's go ahead and go to our input. Let's go ahead and toss that on, and then you can see already it changes it quite dramatically compared to what it was. So this is just with tossing on the camera. So if we turn that back off. So yeah, I think even if you were just going to start with that, I think that's really almost enough. Like if I had this after my long vacation and I had hours of footage to go through and I tossed this on there, I would be pretty happy with that. I do really like the way that this looks. But again, one of the cool things with Dehancer is that you can make as many or as few choices that you want. And then again, we can go through some of these and then see what those look like. Film grain is usually on by default, so we can turn that off, turn it back on. I feel like if you, like I said, are using Dehancer or other film emulators, you gotta turn film grain on. I thought this was a good example of what Dehancer looks like when you're using log footage, because the other one was, again, shot with Sony Cinetone on, so it had a little bit of the grading built into it. But going into this without any of the adjustments and having as much control as we want is pretty awesome. So I really like this, and I'm looking forward to finally getting around to editing some of my footage from Iceland. We were there for a couple of days. I think it was a long weekend. It was the first time that I actually took my camera abroad, and yeah, I took way too many videos, and so many videos, in fact, that I never got around to actually editing it all. But now with Dehancer, I'm actually feeling the drive to go ahead and do that. So I'm excited to give it a try. So if you're like me, you probably have a lot of videos on your phone that you don't really know what to do with. But what if I told you Dehancer has an iOS app that you can download and try for free? It's more of a streamlined version of the desktop plugin with the same massive catalog of film profiles that turn your iPhone videos into something a bit more cinematic. It doesn't have as many of the settings as the desktop version, but over in the lab area, you can make basic adjustments to contrast and color temperature, as well as more in-depth adjustments in the advanced section. Best of all, the app is included with your Dehancer subscription or purchase, so it's a helpful bonus for when you might not have Premiere or DaVinci available. Oh, and like I said earlier, it's great for cat videos. Right, Tangerine? He agrees. Alright, so that's Dehancer for Lightroom and iOS. I figured now's a good time to talk about my thoughts, the good, the bad, that kind of thing. In terms of the good, it's a really helpful tool that allows you to get the most out of your color grading process. It lets you take your footage that might look a little bit standard and really turn it into exactly what you have in mind. But more importantly, it lets you turn digital footage into something as close to film as possible without the real thing. And it does so with real color science behind it, not just a generic filter or a LUT. And I think the best thing personally is how flexible it is. You can use it to grade your entire project, put a small finishing touch after you or your editor have done the heavy lifting, or something in between. I'll touch on it in another video, but I really liked using it to edit photos in Lightroom since, again, it allows you a lot more flexibility than a preset you might download on the internet or with the film grain setting built into Lightroom. But again, that's a topic for another video. All right, so now the bad. And for me, the biggest bad thing is how steep of a learning curve the plugin has when using it with Premiere. Like I said, I mostly edit in Premiere, so that's kind of on me, but effect controls are a bit of a pain to begin with, so having to navigate them to make the changes you want can be a little frustrating at times. There is a standalone desktop app, but that's only for editing photos, and I'd love it if you could edit photos and videos in one place. So, Dehancer, please? The other thing is that I know the plugin is a bit of a resource hog, so using it with Premiere on a big project may cause some slowness on certain devices. If you're interested in trying Dehancer out, check out my affiliate link in the description below to get 10% off your purchase or subscription. If you decide to buy Dehancer or subscribe, I'd love it if you could use my link. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. I was originally planning on going over Dehancer and Lightroom to edit some photos, but I didn't want this video to be half an hour long, so keep an eye out for that on the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Every little bit helps, and it means a lot. If you have any questions or need help with Dehancer, let me know in the comments below. I'm still new to the program, but I'd be happy to help if I can. Also, if you do use Dehancer, what's your favorite film stock? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to try every Kodak profile before using the others, but that's me. Thanks for watching.